Long time.
What's up, sports chiropractors? I am super excited today to have two guests with us today to finish up this series around the life cycle of the chiropractic practice. So today we have Dr. Stephen Franson, who's been with us the last several weeks. He's been awesome. Doc, I've been getting so many positive comments, emails, texts, messages about the content that we've been sharing, that you've been enlightening us about. And everybody's been super happy. And it's just created a lot of value for people. So thank you so much for spending the time with us these last several weeks. We're going to close it out today also with another special guest, Mr. Fred Pinto. So fellas, what's going on?
What's up, Dr. J? Thanks so much, man. Yeah, it's always a privilege to speak to chiropractors, and it's been a lot of fun to do this. So yeah, the 4 seasons construct really resonates with people. We brought a structure to a conversation that we were trying to have in chiropractic, and I feel like the structure of the 4 seasons has really helped. And I'm excited to bring and introduce you guys to my friend and partner in our joint venture, The Remarkable Exit, Dr. Fred Pinto. So Fred, say hi, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Guys, first of all, I'd like to echo Stephen's comments. Thank you. Always grateful to be connecting to a beautiful community of chiropractors. Realize, like, in the chiropractor space, there's a lot of entrepreneurship. There's a lot of innovative thinking. It's a space where people love to learn. And so it's always a privilege and a joy to share thoughts and time with you guys. So I'm an attorney by trade, a transactional lawyer. I help entrepreneurs build their businesses, scale their businesses, grow them safely, lock in their assets, and then ultimately exit. And over the course of my career, I've noticed that even the most successful entrepreneurs end up with suboptimal exits. And the reason for that is because there's very little preventive medicine in the world of law. I was just talking to a client this morning, and we were saying how we're one of the few industries that's incentivized to be inefficient. In other words, like, if things are big and complex and expensive, that's typically good for the lawyer and really bad for the entrepreneur. And so the industry as a whole doesn't really think in terms of like the preventive medicine. We like to deal with the ER scenario, right? But I realized a lot of these entrepreneurs were my friends, and I realized that a lot of them built great businesses, ended up with really suboptimal exits. A lot of times, even though they got a lot of cash, didn't get the right deal for them, for their lifestyle, what they wanted to live. And so we built this program called Fit to Exit, where we teach entrepreneurs how to create an ideal exit and get their business ready for that ideal exit. And so this partnership with Dr. Franson, with the Remarkable Exit, we're bringing these concepts and we're bringing these methodologies to the chiropractic space, and we're super excited about that.
That's awesome. So let's get to it, guys. So, when should a doc start thinking, even planning for their exit? When should that start?
So, Fred, I think I'll drop this one and maybe frame it out. And quick double back is just for those who might have not have heard the first 3 episodes that we did here. Yep. Double back. The recordings are right here. They're posted here for you. So go back and make sure that you get caught up on this content, because regardless of what season you're in your career, you're definitely going to learn something, and it's going to be applicable to you. So just for the sake of review, the construct that we created is called the 4 seasons. There's 4 seasons to the chiropractic career. There's launch, build, scale, and exit. Launch is first year out. Build is when you're in your 2nd year and beyond, where you're an established practice. It might be your 2nd year through your 5th year or 55th year, right? So, but you are the owner operator, right? Which means you are the single healthcare provider in your practice, right? So it's an awesome season, but we know that it can be really stressful because you are the owner operator. You're the only provider. So if you're not there, the thing grinds to a halt. Short story is you don't own a business, you own a job, right? So we encourage doctors to move into the scale season. Scale is when you add an associate doctor or multiple associate doctors, maybe have multiple brick and mortars, what have you, but you start to scale so you can create scalability and durability and eventually transferability. Those were the previous 3 conversations, which of course teed us up for today's conversation, which is exit. Exit is when you're planning your exit strategy. Like, so what's next for you? How are you going to sell your practice, right? So, and you want to make sure you have a successful exit. So what we mean by that is that you have a graceful and profitable exit, right? So graceful meaning that you leave with the feeling that your people are going to be well cared for, your patients, your team members, right? So the mission continues after you retire, and the practice doesn't retire with you, right? And of course, profitable, we want to just optimize the asset value of your practice and make sure that you get capture value, right? So you've created great value. Let's make sure you get the best sale price. So, ultimately in our coaching group, the Remarkable Practice, we've had this really awesome sort of pig in the python effect of over the last 8 years, we've had our doctors moving through these seasons, and, there's always an appetite for the next season ahead of them. And, we have these doctors now that are starting to think about their exit. So as we put together the remarkable exit program, I couldn't help but reach out to Fred and say, hey, Fred, let's do this together, man, because he brings such an awesome perspective. Of course, from the legal side, Fred, I'll let you to sort of fill in the blanks on that one. But ultimately, it's chocolate and peanut butter. He and I came together and we put together, a really end-to-end solution, make sure that Kairos can do this well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way Dr. Stephen breaks it down to the 4 seasons, because that really applies to any business. But I love the way that he developed those methodologies in the chiropractor space, which really kind of resembles a lot of professional services businesses that tend to be a little bit smaller, heavily centered around the founder. It's a particular type of business. You see that in a lot of dental clinics. You see that in law firms as well. You see that in some accounting firms as well. So it's really a great general framework, and it really helps people kind of understand where they are in the process. Going back to your question, Jay, as to when should people start thinking about an exit? Obviously, the earlier, so all the stuff that we teach in the Remarkable Exit, some of the tools are easy to implement quickly, and some of the tools take time to implement, right? Some tax strategies may take you years to get the full benefits, right? Some of the stuff that we teach on optimizing the valuation of your business. So we figured out with experts that the variability in the valuation, in other words, at equal sales, right? $1 million of sale, same sales, same profit, your practice can be where the variability is about 3.5 times. So depending on some of the metrics of how you've built your business and how you've prepared your business for an exit, the business could be worth A or 3.5 times A. Okay. And that goes into a lot of sort of the methodologies that we teach people how to create value in their business without necessarily increasing their sales. Right. And doing that takes time. It may take a few years. So we say if it's less than 18 months, we see you like you're in transactional mode, right? You're trying to make a deal. You're trying to close a deal. We're trying to maybe do a bit of patchwork if we can. A lot of the great benefits of what we do, you can't really get if you're in that 18-month period. Between 18 months and 60 months, so 5 years, you're in that kind of sweet spot. Ideally, you'd be in the 3-4 year period. We can really implement really virtually all of the tools that we have. But you're going to have to be serious. You're going to have a plan. You're going to have to implement. You have to have quarterly review of what you're doing, right? A lot of this stuff plays out not in the day-to-day mode. And keep in mind, in parallel, you're running a business, right? So you don't necessarily have a ton of bandwidth to do this stuff, right? So the more time you have, the more you can implement things and not have it take over your day-to-day. More than 5 years, you're in the green zone. In other words, we're going to have plenty of time to do it. You're not going to have to spend too much of your time. We're going to be able to plan this out, and we're going to be able to get really all of the value. So we like to get people starting as early as possible. Ideally, if you're in that 4 or 5 year period, you really should start taking it seriously. The closer you cut it to your transaction, the fewer benefits you're going to get, and the more you're going to go into the sort of the routine way that we deal with it in M&A, which is expensive transactions, a lot of patchwork. You don't get the full benefits.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Can I fill in some blanks there?
Sure.
Because Fred's got such a fluency here in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, right? So in his space is like, this is like us throwing around chiropractic vernacular right now, Fred. So as we tease that back, I want to just double down on a couple of things he said there when we talk about valuation, right? So when you get a valuation, this is like a third-party objective assessment of what your practice is worth. So when you take it to the marketplace, whether it's Main Street or Wall Street, you want to know what your valuation is. There's factors that are going to play in your valuation. Quality of revenue is a big one, right? So, you're going to get a multiplier. It's let's say it's 1.5 to 3.5 times the earnings. You're going to look at this as your business, and it's a holy crap moment for a lot of people, right? So they have their assumptions and fantasies around what their business is really worth. And the truth be told is that, you've got to be able to begin with an end in mind and build that asset value, right? So this is where, I'm appealing to my brothers and sisters out there to be able to say, don't wait until you think you're a year away from exiting or 18 months away from exit. You heard Fred say 18 months, right? So that's when you cross into the holy crap zone, right? So it's like, you got to recognize, and I don't want to scare anybody because we want to be able to help them here and do this right. But it's, at the end of the day, no one's teaching our profession this, right? So that second zone is that between 18 months and 5 years, that's what we call the sweet spot, is specifically that 3 to 4 year zone so that you can actually have a creative process. You can begin with the end in mind. You can put these, what you would consider like vehicles, like corporate structures and tax structures in place, so you can really capitalize on keeping the money you get in the sale, right? So this is very important, guys. We're talking about, this is a $50,000 to $500,000 conversation we're having right now, right? So it's a very real conversation. And then the last piece of this, that 5 years out, you've heard me say it a couple of times already here. When's the best time to plant an oak tree? 50 years ago. When's the next best time? Today, right? So for those of you who are listening right now, when we talk about asset value, you want to build a business that people will compete to buy, right? You want to be sitting at a negotiation table, but it's 2 or 3 or 4 buyers who are like, I want to buy that business and I want to buy that practice. That takes time to build, from a strategic and planning to implementation, culture, all these things. So man, it's really the people that might have been checking out when they even saw the email about exit strategy. They're like, I'm 5 years away from that or 15 years away from that. That's a big mistake. You're actually in the catbird seat to be able to say, oh, this is nice. I'm going to have a creative process and do what I tell my patients to do, which is to be proactive and get after it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta just give you guys some color commentary, and Steven knows this because we're in an accountability group together. But I did this. Like, I went through a practice valuation, and it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I'm not ready to sell my practice yet. I'm not retiring. I got a long way to go. But it was important for me to understand where I stood based on the value that I was creating, and how could I essentially, derive more value from my business. And so the idea that I'm doing it now so that I can be prepared 3, 5, 10 years from now is really, really important. So I'm so glad that you emphasized that point, Steven. So Fred, I know you were going to say something there.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, because the ultimate value of your business is not going to be based on your opinion. Even if it's like, okay, it's 3 times EBITDA, that's not the way your valuation is going to be established. Okay, it's a lot more complex than that. Those are rules of thumb. It's more complex than that. So what you want to know is, you want to know what the actual factors are that play into the value. Right. You want to reverse engineer that into a managerial process where you're kind of building value against those metrics. And so one of the typical ways is you want to beat your industry ratios. Okay. So every industry has ratios when it comes to accounts receivables, when it comes to accounts payables, when it comes to cash, cash flow, so if you know what those ratios are, that gives you a clear target managerially. You don't have to improvise. You know that if your numbers are not as good, well, you're going to go towards the low end of the valuation. If numbers are better than the industry, it goes towards the high end. Or updating and upgrading your systems and processes, right? We hear that a lot of chiropractor practices are very paper-based system, old school system. The whole mindset of exiting is you are building this asset to realize the dreams of somebody else, okay? So it's the opposite mindset of running a business. You run a business to realize your dreams. Exiting a business is the art and science of creating the perfect platform for somebody else to realize their dreams, okay? So you got to really get into the mindset of the buyer. Jake, and I want to say,
think about what he's saying there, and think of all of our friends in chiropractic. I mean, this is what they need to hear. It's like, this is akin to selling your house, right? Like when you build a house and you decorate your house and you live in your house, it's your house and you build it and decorate it for you, for the way you live your life, right? Then you go to sell your home. What happens? The experts come in and go, okay, get rid of all that art, get that furniture out of here. We're going to stage this place up. And you're like, wait a minute, right? It's like, I love it like this. And like, then why are you selling it? It's like, listen, time out. We're not marketing to you. You already bought this house. You're selling this house. We need to market this to the buyer, right? So it's a total mind flip. Yeah, it's like, we need to create this thing that's going to be really attractive to the buyer. Sorry, Fred. I love when you say that, because it's really critically important. You that to me was like a ding, eyes on. Like, oh man, I'm going to spend the next 18 months or 5 years building something that's going to be super attractive to the person that's going to give me the highest price and take great care of my patients.
That's incredible perspective. Yeah, Fred, say it again.
It's not easy for entrepreneurs to do that, because typically they go into business because they're very independent minded. They want to do their passion. They want to do it their way. Just like me, I'm an entrepreneur too. That's the same thing with me, right? But when I had to start internally exiting my practice, I had to start looking at it from the standpoint of a young lawyer who's thinking of the next 40, 50 years of their life. And it's like, what do they need, right? So there's a spirit of service almost you have to kind of cultivate as an exiting entrepreneur. And I would say also it's really critical the way Steven teaches it, the 4 seasons, because the exit is really dovetails into the scale, okay? Because as Steven said, if you're not scaling, you own a job. Nobody's going to buy you out of a job, right? Unless maybe you own the real estate, so you can sell the real estate. You could sell a lease. Somebody could put a different business there, but nobody's going to buy you out of a house. If somebody's going to buy you out of a business, okay, you need to have some scalability. Scalability is going to mean having at least a couple of key productive pieces in place where the buyer, whether it's one of those productive pieces or a third party, are going to be able to get exceptional value from the business far into the future after you leave, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is a leadership legacy, right? Like, you've got to be able to lead and build your company and the culture of the company and the results of the company in a way that it doesn't need you anymore. I mean, that creates tremendous value.
Yeah.
So guys, and we could talk all day long, but we do have a limited amount of time, and I want to get to some really key important components here, the 4 stages of the remarkable exit. So can we just get through those stages? Let's talk about that. I think it's really important for the audience to hear.
Yeah, I'll go high level, and then, Fred, I'll let you pick up. I think on readiness is probably the place where we should focus. So think of it as this 4 stages of the remarkable exit. The first of it is strategy, thinking about the exit from this vision casting perspective is like, what does success look like to you? Let's put together a strategy to reverse engineer that. Then there's the readiness, like, are you ready? Like, there is a lot of readiness, everything from the psychological to the emotional to the physical, right? So you've got to get yourself ready. You've got to get your team ready, your patients ready, your business ready, your process ready, and your corporate structures, et cetera. Just the readiness piece. I'll let Fred speak to that. And then it's going to market, right? So you've got to go sell it, So what you're doing, you do it through a broker. And then the 4th and final stage is the actual transactional piece of this, which is the legal process. It's the documentation, et cetera, right? So 4 stages, Fred. I know that we wanted to double click on readiness.
Yeah, so very quickly, from a exit readiness perspective, obviously you need to know what the ideal exit type is for you. Obviously, you want to know who your key exit player, the person or people who are going to be driving your ideal exit. You want to know who that is. You want to have really clear optics on the final transaction structure. And how do you go from where you are now to there? It could be a multi-step process. Very oftentimes, the best laid out exit strategies are multi-step. They're not one step. They're not one transaction. From a readiness perspective, you really want to look at number 3, 4 key elements. Number 1 is tax optimization. It's not about how much money you make gross on the exit. It's about how much money you take home. So getting yourself structured properly from a tax perspective is really important. I know a lot of chiropractors are set up as LLCs, filing as S corps to save the self-employment tax. I know that leaves fewer tax optimization strategies available to them than other professions or other businesses, but there's still some really exciting ones. Cash balance plans. You can establish a trust. There's a couple of trusts that apply to S corps that you can implement as well. That takes a little bit of time. So there are some interesting tax strategies. The next point is your valuation strategy. And it's what we talked about. It's at the same amount of sales without increasing. You can reduce your sales and double the value of your business simultaneously. I talk to my valuation experts about this all the time. We always joke around. We laugh about it because people think it's just about increasing sales. No, you can increase sales and simultaneously reduce the value of your business. 100%. We see it all the time. Okay. So there's a reverse engineering of the valuation process where you can increase the value of your business without increasing your sales. So that's your valuation strategy. Okay. Then you want to obviously lock in your assets, the key assets. If you have a brand, customer information, you want to lock that in legally, and you want to separate that from your liabilities as much as possible. That makes a really exit-friendly business, okay? You want to make your agreements, all of the contracts that you have, really exit-friendly, okay? And a lot of boilerplate terms that lawyers use in the agreements are not exit-friendly. And they're used to that frenetic pace of the transaction, trying to do patchwork, none of that. The more you take that in advance, you can make your agreements exit-ready. You can really accelerate towards your exit a lot faster. And those are really some of the key points that we want to look into in every single case. And then when you're going to make a deal with your key exit player, okay, as I said, you want to look at it as a multi-step deal. There may be a moment where you kind of where they start off as a service provider or an employee, and then slowly you're starting to, get them into the equity picture. When it comes to an LLC, it's either a capital interest or a profit interest. So you're going to get really educated about that. That creates a lot of retention, right? And they're starting to own a little piece of the business. There's a lot of research from top universities showing that the retention rates, it doesn't make people perform better, but it keeps them retained a lot better. And then you want to start maybe building in some of your external exits. So the purchase of the practice inside of those agreements, and or right, get external buyers interested as well. So those
So
are
Jay, you can see why we hit it off so well, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, I love this,
Let's
guys.
get
I
into
mean,
it. How can we take an hour? Let's get after this, man.
I got to
There's so
tell you,
much to do.
I wish I could, because I would truly stay here. I feel blessed to be able to have met Fred today, because this is great information. I mean, the level of technical expertise is truly impressive. And it's clear that there is a roadmap, and the roadmap starts with, that first, season of practice that Stephen, you talked about, and the other two as well. But at the end of the day, this is so important. And the idea that people should start planning now is really, really critical. I mean, I love what you guys are teaching.
Here's a mindset around it, Jay, as we go through those 4 seasons: launch, build, scale, and exit. Just in this conversation, okay? That first season launch, this is about building your skills as a chiropractor, building your skills as a doctor, starting to build your skills as an entrepreneur, and really just like building your brand, right?
Yeah.
So as you go into build, it's about building your practice, right? So this is about just head down, bum up, taking care of people and building a bigger practice. As you go into scale, this is about building asset value, right?
Yeah.
So if you change your minds, it's like that should, I hope, ignite and excite and energize some of the listeners right now and be like, yeah, you know what? I've been there, done that. I've built my practice. I've built my skills of it. This next season, I'm going to build my asset value, right? So you can build a great big future. So I hope you guys found huge value here.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome, guys. And I know, Stephen, that you, as you always do, because you're incredibly generous with your knowledge and your content, I know that you got a giveaway for the group. So what do you got?
Yeah, so we've put together an exit readiness checklist to bring awareness, clarity around the sequentially. There's a lot to do here. So we have that here as a download. So we'll put it in the show notes. There's a link here. Jay, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to get it to people, but we're going to get it to them. So
yeah, we'll get it
from Fred and I. And if we can be any help, feel free to reach out and we'll help unpack it for you.
Guys, this has been fantastic. The whole series, Stephen, has been fantastic. Again, I want to thank you. We've gotten so much positive feedback because of all of your knowledge that you're sharing with the world. Fred, great to have you here today. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation with both you guys, because I'll be like calling you up, being like, all right, when are we meeting, guys? Because I need to plan at some point. I'm gonna exit. So I want to be prepared. And what you got, and based on my knowledge of my first valuation and what you guys have taught today, I am so intrigued and I'm so excited. So thank you guys. You guys rock.
Thanks,
looking forward
guys.
to catching up soon. And to the international sports chiropractic community, hey, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've gotten great value out of this series, and we'll bring Dr. Franson back. He's not getting away from us anytime soon. We'll bring him back soon to drop some more knowledge bombs. So guys, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, you
Thanks
guys.
for having us.